What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in the Khaliis Take. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But hey, let's just go ahead and jump right in. You know, it's evident by the reports that a lot of people think the Clippers are going to make some trades this offseason and make some moves and maybe shake a few things up, in the lineup. And hopefully that's not what happens, because you want the Clippers to keep their core players the way they've had them, throughout this past season and the season prior. And, you hope they be able to make a run at a championship going into this next season, which is a very important, very crucial season for them as a team, as a unit, and as a culture, and just as an organization that has an opportunity to win a championship. And I said, there's a certain player or certain players the Clippers can't afford to trade, regardless of what their off-season moves are going into, next season. And, to me, one player the Clippers can't afford to trade, I think that is not only a role player but valuable, is Nicolas Batum. I say all the time, Nicolas Batum is one of those glue type guys who does all the dirty work and all the little things, the intangibles, the word that I love to use the most, because to me, that's the biggest word on the map when you look at any sports team and how they gel and how far they take it in playoffs and how good of a team they usually are during the regular season. Now, we know Kawhi Leonard is the best defender on the team, along with Paul George maybe being the second. And we know that this team has some defense. But when you talk about Nicolas Batum, he's one of those role players that I feel like the Clippers can't trade, to me, or they need to find a way to keep and value, because he just does all the little things. Now, he only averaged 8 points, but he shot 40% from the field this season, and he shot about 46% from three at one point in one part of the season. So he's definitely a value piece, and he's definitely one of those pieces that the Clippers can utilize in different areas. Kawhi Leonard is the only player besides PG on the roster that I feel like can guard position 1 through 5. And those two players have definitely proven they can do that, because they have guarded, positions 1 through 5 at some point in their career, and definitely, since they've been on the Clippers as well. But the other player that can do that is Nicolas Batum. Nicolas Batum is definitely more versatile than what a lot of people think. And the reason why I feel like the Clippers definitely need to keep him and don't, use him as bait for a trade is because, like I said, his value in that way. Because when you ask Kawhi Leonard to guard position 1 through 5, which he can, it takes a lot of energy out of him to do that and go on the other end and give you 30 points. Nicolas Batum can guard position 1 through 5. Even though he's older, he still can do it. And he's not asked to score 30 points per game on the other end of the floor. So to me, to take pressure off Kawhi Leonard and PG when they're guarding the top players, to switch off, they always usually do that with Marcus Morris and Nicolas Batum. And every time I've seen a lot of games I've looked at, when they switched off between Marcus Morris and Nicolas Batum would do the best job on whoever he's guarding. And on top of that, he can alternate and switch and guard the 5 position if he chooses to, or if that's how Ty Lue chooses to use him that specific game. And this is the reason why I said he's one of those glue guys that the Clippers really can't afford to lose, because in big games he can knock down big shots. He's proven that. And there's a lot of times in games that people may not notice, or that goes unnoticed, when the Clippers are down in a lot of games. He's usually always the one that can kind of generate the spark, because he is a knockdown shooter at a pretty high clip. And a lot of people around the league, a lot of players around the league respect Nicolas Batum, because they know what he does. They know he can guard positions. They know he's one of the most versatile pieces on the Clippers, and he takes a lot of pressure off Kawhi and PG be on the defensive end where they could lag off assignments at times and just throw Nicolas Batum on them. And Nicolas Batum can neutralize, and alter some shots, cause turnovers, and he can block some still, even though he's not as mobile as he was, back in the day, several years ago when he was with the Portland Trail Blazers. He's still pretty mobile and still pretty movable, even though he's at his age now and even though he's getting a little bit older, but he's still a value piece because his IQ for the game is just very, very high. That's the reason why I believe he's still in the NBA, because his IQ allows him to be in the NBA because he understands the game from a level and the standpoint that a lot of other players don't, which is specifically the reason why I said if the Clippers are going to win a championship, if they go after a point guard or whatever piece they get, they need somebody with high IQ because they got some high IQ players on their roster that really know how to play the game and see the game from a different angle, whereas most players don't. Because when you look at Nicolas Batum's versatility, when other team is going on a run, a lot of times not only he's the one that knocks down big shots from the corner or the elbow or wherever he is on the floor, but he's also the one that'll take the responsibility and guard the best player on the opposite team sometime as well. And as I said before, that takes pressure off Kawhi Leonard. If asking Kawhi Leonard to guard the best player and score 30 points a game, Kawhi can do that. But at some point Kawhi is going to wear down from that because that takes a lot out of him. And precisely that could be the reason why he possibly got injured in the year before last playoffs when they beat the Dallas Mavericks going into Utah, and then he got the knee injury because he's asked to do so much time and time again, where it's just going to start to wear on Kawhi Leonard over time. And then, coming back from this ACL injury that he had, you definitely don't want to have to put too much pressure on him doing those type things all throughout the season, however many games he plays throughout the season, and go through the grind of the playoffs and do the same thing. Now, I'm not saying Kawhi can't do it because I still think he has it in to do that. Of course, Kawhi is only 30 years old. I still think he can do those things at a high level. Of course he can. But when you could take pressure on him and not allow him to do it and give him that rest and give him that leeway where he doesn't always have to do it, then that definitely bodes well for your future because that gives him the energy and that'll give him more, that'll propel him more to be able to just save some of that energy for the playoffs and go out there and dominate the way he can. And having somebody like Nicolas Batum can allow him to do that. Also, it can allow PG to do that because there's also a lot of games where you've seen where PG, is guarding somebody and they're getting the best of him while he's playing defense, and they switch off and put Nicolas Batum on him, show him a different body, show him a different style of defense, and usually it throws opponents off because, the Clippers got size, length, all that. And when you say the Clippers have size, Nicolas Batum is a part of the reason why they have that size and versatility because he brings that every single time he's on the floor. And that's the reason why Ty Lue is just super in love with this guy because he knows that he can use Batum in so many different ways when they're struggling or when the other team is making a run. And Nicolas Batum could be one of those players that could help stop the bleeding, whether it's knocking down a big three, as I said, or whether going on the defensive end and making a play to get a few stops to propel the Clippers to generate their offense and get going while the other team is making that run. So to me, Nicolas Batum is one of those players I feel like they should avoid in trying to let go. I definitely think they need to keep him because I feel like if they let go of Nicolas Batum, it can definitely lessen the chances of winning a championship. And I know they got Robert Covington, I know they got Norman Powell, and I know they still currently got Marcus Morris, but I just think that Nicolas Batum's value is way underrated more than it gets talked about because I think that he still brings something that those other players I just named don't have. Marcus Morris is a decent two-way player, but he doesn't have the sense of control of his game the way Nicolas Batum does. And besides, Nicolas Batum is just as good as a three-point shooter. And when you think about Morris and even Robert Covington and Norman Powell, they play defense and they can knock down shots as well. But remember, they don't have the IQ that Nicolas Batum has because Nicolas Batum has the experience that they don't have. He has that wisdom. Even though though Norman Powell has won a championship with Kawhi Leonard on the Toronto Raptors, but that was a situation where he was just in a good situation and Kawhi was just ultimately dominant that whole playoffs. So good for him, but even still, those players I just named, the Clippers should definitely keep Powell and Covington if they choose to. I'm not too sure about Marcus Morris. I think he might be the one that's first dealt if they actually do make a move. But, Nicolas Batum's value is just, it's priceless to me. And if they let go of somebody like him, it's going to be hard to replace somebody like him because, who would you get back who has that versatility and that IQ that he has? And, for the most part, when you think about it, Nicolas Batum, for his age and, him being at, the stage he is in his career, he stays pretty healthy for his age. He's not the healthiest person, I would say, in the NBA, but he stays pretty healthy for his age as well. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he kind of usually stays healthy, keeps himself in shape, keeps himself motivated for every season, even though he's been doing this a while, it's definitely amazing to see. And I feel like the Clippers should definitely value that, you know what I'm saying? Because in the playoffs, he's going to be there, I believe, in big games, Nicolas Batum is going to be there, you know what I'm saying? And when he's on the floor, he definitely makes an impact, you know what I'm saying? Whether offensively or defensively, even though he doesn't score that much and even though he kind of goes under the radar, he's just one of those players you need to keep around if you want to try to win a championship, because he's one of those players who can make a play in the playoffs or when it's a big moment in a game that can alter and change the momentum of a game, because he can get a block. He can block shots. As I say, he can move his feet on offense. His length disrupts a lot of penetration to the basket, and him putting his hands out there when somebody's trying to go to the rim, somebody like maybe a Steph Curry or somebody like that, just to give you an example, he can get a hand in there and alter a dribble and then make Stephen Curry go through the legs or lose the ball possibly, or whoever the player is lose the ball, and it gives the Clippers the momentum and they're going the other way on a fast break. I've seen him do things like that so many times, not only this season but pretty much throughout his career. And like I said, anytime the other team is on a run, Nicolas Batum can knock down some big shots to keep the Clippers going. I mean, he definitely showed his value, especially this year. And ever since he's been on the Clippers, he's shown his value. And I just think that he's just one of those players that they have to find a way to keep. I mean, even if you have him coming off your bench or whatever the case may be, I still need him on the roster because I trust Nicolas Batum. I like his intangibles, and I like the way, he utilizes himself on the court to keep himself as a valuable piece. And I like his versatility because his versatility makes the Clippers a different dynamic to me. He's one of those players on there that gives them a different dynamic, especially now that they don't have a Serge Ibaka anymore, who's a big man who has versatility in his own right. So to me, losing Serge Ibaka or giving away Serge Ibaka, you can't give away Nicolas Batum, because now you're losing your versatility, which, takes pressure off Kawhi and PG and a lot of the other players as well. You know what I'm saying? So I think the Clippers need to find a way to keep him, which I really hope they do, and I really believe they will. And I believe that if they do that, I feel like that'll better their chances, of course, going into next season, being a lot stronger on defense, along with the two additional pieces they added in Covington and Powell. And I feel like that'll definitely bode well for them, having somebody like him who's a great locker room guy and who a lot of people in the locker room, pretty much everybody probably in that locker room, respects and thinks highly of. So, that's another thing. Having a good locker room guy with chemistry definitely goes a long way as well. So I think, they definitely need to keep somebody like him and maybe add to their team, of course, in the point guard position with somebody with some high IQ basketball as well that can help them in their season next year of going after a championship. But hey, that's my take on everything. Leave any comments in the comment section as always. And hey, Khaliis out.